All righty, I hereby call the City Council meeting of July 26th to order. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Mayor King, would you please lead it?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Linda, roll call.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Here.
Councilmember Mercado.
Here.
Vice Mayor King.
Here.
And Mayor Sierra.
Here. Thank you very much. Any reordering of the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, public comments. Now is your time. We've got such a big audience tonight. Now's the time to turn in a speaker slip to talk about anything you want to talk about. On the agenda, off the agenda, complaints, compliments, we take them all. Our first speaker, only one tonight, unless somebody else wants to get up, Mr. Barker. Baker. B-A-K. Okay. Sorry about that. With the Boys and Girls Club. Welcome back.
Yes, of course.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure being here. I'm the CEO for the United Boys and Girls Club, Michael Baker, CEO of United Boys and Girls Club, Santa Barbara County, and our newest club is in Buellton, which has been operating out of Honolulu. We've been here now for a little over a year. We're finishing up our first full year, and I want to give you some stats that I've shared before, but just give you an update. We know from national studies with Boys and Girls Clubs all over the country that if we can get a child to attend the Boys and Girls Club 105 days in the same calendar year, they're twice as likely to graduate high school in time and twice as likely to lead a healthy lifestyle. So we create a program we call Club 105. And how that works is the children, when they first attend the Boys and Girls Club, they're given their membership card, and the membership card this year is yellow. When they get to the 52nd day, they get their silver card, halfway point. I know it's 52 and a half days, but the 52, they get their silver card, and they get special privileges with that. And then when they get to 105 days, we have what we call a gold card ceremony, and they're given their gold card. And that gives them special privileges. And what we've been able to do at every one of our other communities, Lompoc, Buellton, not Buellton yet, but Lompoc, Carpinteria, Goleta, and Santa Barbara, is we make a really big deal about that, and we encourage it to be done actually at a city council meeting where the kids are presented with their gold cards by the mayor and council and acknowledged. We'd love to do that here as well in Buellton, and I'm happy to report to you that we were hopeful that when we first started the program that we'd have 20 kids enrolled in our program. We figured if we get 20 kids, we'll be able to make that work and charge the $40 a year for member. We didn't charge the membership fee. It was $6 a day for kids to go to the program. I'm happy to report to you that we're up to 187 kids. We have 100 boys and 87 girls, and we have a wait list. We have the need for more space, so that's something that we're working with the school district on. But we're very excited about what we're seeing here in Buellton, and I'm proud of it because I'm a resident. I actually live in Vineyard Village and very happy to be here and love the community, and want to encourage each and every one of you, if you haven't done so yet, please come on down and see the program in action. It would mean a lot to our staff to be able to show off what's happening at the Boys and Girls Club in Buellton.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We would be honored to hand out the gold cards.
Wonderful. We'll be honored. We'll be in contact.
Absolutely. Thank you. All righty. I don't have any other speaker slips for public comment. Betsy's probably on one of the other items. Then I'm closing public comment. Moving on to our consent calendar. We've got just a couple of them today. First is minutes of July 12, 2018 regular City Council meeting. Item 2, list of claims to be approved and ratified for payment to date for fiscal year 2018-19, and the monthly treasurer's report through June 30th, 2018.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, Linda?
Vice Mayor King.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye, thank you. Any public hearings today?
No, ma'am.
Alrighty. Moving on to council member comments / items. Councilmember Mercado, anything from you?
Not right now. I'm good.
Councilmember Andrusik?
Well, now, comment, it's not future agenda items, these are comments. Okay. Town Center parking lot where the Albertson CVS parking lot is. There is a drive-in, pretty much dead center is a designed to have a stop sign. The stop sign, I think, isn't there, but there's no marking in the street. And people have come in and asked that because they're driving by knowing that's a stop sign, but people that don't know that there's a stop sign supposed to be there, because there's not a white line, they just drive through.
Where's that again?
Right into, going into town center, heading towards.
And this would be on the private property, a private stop sign?
Yes, the private property, but I don't know how long it would take the property manager to get to it. I thought maybe we could tell them, because that's a.
No, that's why I want to find out if it was
Yeah,
ours
it is
or
private.
private. If it's private, I can have code enforcement take a look at it and send them a
If
letter.
they just let them know, I think that would speed it up, because it probably takes someone to go out and put some cones out.
And this is the
White-
main entrance off
Yeah.
of 246, that
246,
driveway in there.
Going southbound,
Mhm.
'cause north is the other center.
Right, correct.
Where Tom's.
Mark knows.
If you're going past Tom's, then you got, there's a little island of plants.
Oh, yeah, okay, I
going-
know what you're talking about, right.
It's the main entrance
Yeah, the main
into,
entrance.
into the
Right.
town, the shopping center from 246.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
And then I know that we had, we've talked about speeding, but maybe it'll be in a report, you may have a new name for us tonight, but the Second Street speeding is still at La Lata, from La Lata to Central. It's
And-
just where all the families are.
And I have talked to Lieutenant Sway about the
Good.
speed enforcement on Second Street, and
Right.
we,
And we talked, there is a plan, I know there's a plan, but I think people would like to hear that we've got.
well, I asked him to start the LiDAR enforcement there for the motor officer we currently have.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor King, any comments or items from you?
Yes, I don't recommend that you drive to Nashville in 5 days and then fly back at 7 o'clock in the morning on the next day. That's unadvisable.
Make a note of that.
Good comment.
Nashville, Mexico, or Nashville?
Oh, my God.
Well, welcome back. We're glad to have you here tonight. Well, you guys know me. I have a few things. First of all, I would like an item brought back to council, hopefully on the next agenda, about our stormwater. Right now, we have M&S doing the stormwater drain inspections throughout the city, and I found out that Tetra Tech is very qualified to do this, and I would like to bring back a discussion about revision of the contract to allow Tetra Tech to take care of the developers.
Madam Mayor, the contracts are up this year. Is that something we can do when the contracts come back up later in the fall?
When in the fall?
The contracts are up in December, so we'd start discussions probably in November.
Okay.
Is that acceptable? I mean, that's
Yeah.
when they
that
come
works.
up, and when you,
Yeah.
If we go through the
Yeah,
process.
that would be great. Thank you very much.
Double
welcome.
your efforts.
And the rest are just kind of announcements. First of all, I wanted to send a shout out to our fire department, our county fire that we contract with. We had a couple of one was really big, the windmill fire last Friday, and I had aircraft over the house. You could see the little flecks of paint on the underside of it. It was amazing. They had helicopters and planes, and the response was amazing. Saved a lot of, it was just over 100 acres, and it could have been a lot worse with the winds going. Last night, right down the street from me on Arden Avenue, we had a house fire, and by the time they were done, there were 5 big units there. Our Station 31 responded immediately. We saw Solvang, San Ynez, and then another
Los
one or two.
Los Alamos.
Alamos,
came.
okay.
And I think one from Santa Maria was coming up, and I don't know if they came there or went or covered our station or not.
Okay. Anyway, I was just blown away by the response and how lucky we are to have a contract with
And
our
the
fire.
battalion chief contacted me before the 31 even got to the scene about the incident, so we were notified immediately about that, and then I worked with the incident commander later that evening trying to get the building division out to tag the building because it was not
Yeah.
safe to occupy.
Yeah, thank you. And our city manager did show up at the scene, which I appreciated as well. Thank you very
And
much.
with that, I was going to say, I appreciate at least the computer conversation, because you kept us
Yeah.
informed on both of the issues.
And then just a couple of other ones. This Saturday is our barbecue bonanza from 11 to 2. It's our 14th year, I believe. And Riverview Park, 18? 18?
I think people
We've
said
been
8.
doing it a long time. 11 to 2, tri-tip sandwiches, beans, salad, music, stuff for the kids to do, booths. It's one of the true pleasures of living in a small town, that we can provide that for our residents as a thank you for living in such a beautiful place. Also, September 7th, we have our crab feast down at Zaca Creek Golf Course. That's a Friday evening, and proceeds from that are going to go to the PTSA, the schools here, and music, crabs. It should be a really nice night out on the golf course. So if you're interested, contact City Hall or check the website. That's it for me. Okay. Written communications?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Committee reports? No committees? Okay.
I did attend last Wednesday the annual board meeting for JPIA, our insurance carrier, and everybody's happy with the loss recovery. They really compliment their outreach for liability, for discovering liability, keeping with everybody so they don't come into a situation that is festering and then blows up in big time, like Morro Bay did a long time ago.
Okay. And the main body of CAG got together last week. It was the $300,000 grant for the safety study was approved, officially approved. Since then, they've got the director and 2 of her assistants came up to speak to Mark and myself and Rose. We were worried about that this study is going to take 2 years. We'd like it to move faster than that. And they said that they would put Buellton as the first part of the study to be completed. So hopefully we'll see. The main consensus I got was that Buellton needs a road diet. That's my understanding.
That's right.
Road?
A road
It's a little,
diet.
little too wide.
Rogue.
Road.
R-O-A-D?
R-O-A-D. A road diet.
Shrinking the road down.
It's too big. Kids can't get across it. We need to shrink it.
246?
246. We need to shrink it. Okay, moving on to business items. Agenda item number 4, presentation by the County of Santa Barbara on community choice energy and strategic energy planning, and direction to staff about city participation in these programs. Mr. Bierdzinski.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I'll just give a quick introduction and then introduce Jennifer Krieger, project supervisor from the county, who will be making the presentation. We've outlined and provided a lot of documents about the programs to you in the PowerPoint. Staff does have concerns that the City Council really should take into account when they're reviewing this and deciding whether they want to move forward. And on the community choice energy is, city would be placed in an electrical utility position. We don't have the expertise or necessarily the time to work on this particular type of endeavor. There are no guarantees that this is a reliable source, and that was outlined in the PowerPoint that was attached to your presentation or to your staff report. And the savings at this time are around 11 to 51, but that's estimated, and they could go up or down depending on what happens in the future, because we can't control energy and energy prices. And for the SEP program, the Strategic Energy Planning, it would cost the city up to $12,000 to participate in the study, whereas PG&E has their own reliability projects and alternative energy sources that the city has been working with. So is it more cost effective to go that route, which doesn't cost the city anything, or participate in the study? So they're just some of the concerns, questions that staff had that we want to present to the council. But now we'll introduce Jennifer Krieger from the county for the presentation.
Welcome.
Thank Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and council members. Thanks for having me this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Jen Krieger. I jointly lead the County of Santa Barbara's Sustainability Division. So we work on programs that help homeowners and soon businesses save energy. We're also looking for ways to transition the county to cleaner energy sources more quickly, and we also oversee the county's Energy and Climate Action Plan, which sets a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change and outlines specific policies and programs and actions that we can all take to try to get to that lowered emissions goal. I also want to mention I have a staff member of mine here with me today. Marissa Hanson-Lopez is behind me, and she's been working specifically on the strategic energy planning work. So I may call her up to answer any questions you may have as well. So next slide, please. So as Mark alluded to, I do have two potential collaboration opportunities I want to share with you this evening. One is Community Choice Energy, which I may also refer to as CCE, and the other is what we're calling Strategic Energy Planning. So I'm going to give you a pretty basic overview of both opportunities. In the case of CCE, we've actually done a really detailed technical feasibility analysis. I'm going to share high-level results from that study, and then for both items, give you some next steps if you should wish to partner with the county on this. Next slide, please. So starting with Community Choice Energy, it is essentially a way for local governments to be more involved in local energy decisions. So this slide right now is kind of showing you the status quo, how you and all of your constituents get electricity here in Buellton today. There's kind of three primary functions that the privately owned investor utilities provide today. So here it's Pacific Gas and Electric, or PG&E. The first function they provide is they actually source your electricity supply. So they decide where your electricity is coming from, whether that's a natural gas power plant, a solar plant, a wind farm, you name it, they're making the decisions about that. The second piece in the middle is the delivery side of the equation. So they actually own and operate the power lines and related infrastructure that gets that electricity from where it's created at the power plant to where it's consumed in our homes and businesses and government facilities. And then the third piece is the customer service function. So they actually provide meter reading services to actually know how much energy you are using. They schedule the bills and send those out to you. They respond to power outages, offer programming and things like that. If you go, click one more time, please. Oh, sorry, go back. There was a automation in there I thought would switch over. So under Community Choice Energy, essentially the only thing that would change in this current framework is that on the far left side where it says the source, instead of your electricity supply decisions being made by PG&E, they would now be made by a consortium of local governments right here in Santa Barbara County. So the power lines stay with PG&E. They fully own that infrastructure and continue to maintain and operate it. Most of the customer service functions still remain with PG&E in terms of responding to power outages, make sure you have service 24/7. The only thing that would change is that now you, through representation on a Joint Powers Authority board, would get to decide where the electricity comes from that flows to our buildings here and how much you're going to charge customers for that. So most customers wouldn't notice any change. There's just a new line item on their bill that still gets sent by PG&E. Next slide.
And I do apologize. I had problems with the PowerPoint, so I converted it to a PDF. So that's
no problem.
Where that came from.
That's the only time that'll happen. That was just the only one. This is just a little bit of history. I'm not sure if y'all have been following kind of our regional effort looking into Community Choice Energy. It actually started a few years ago at this point, back in summer 2015. The Board of Supervisors authorized funding and directed staff to go out and do what's called a feasibility study to decide whether or not CCE was right for our community. They also wanted to see if it might be better run as a regional collaborative effort across the Tri-County region. So over the course of the summer of 2015 and into the fall, we've reached out to all the local governments, both here in Santa Barbara County, including you, as well as local governments throughout San Luis Obispo and Ventura County. Several of those local governments, 11 of us all in total, we got together to share the cost of an initial feasibility study to look at a CCE program serving the Tri-County area. That study, the results of that came back in fall of 2017. That initial study actually showed that it probably wouldn't be a viable undertaking to pursue CCE, a big program across the 3 counties together. Several reasons for that. In part, well, you're served by PG&E. The southern parts of Santa Barbara County and Ventura County are served by Southern California Edison. They are by far not the same entity. They have very different rate structures, very different billing systems, provided some complications. We presented the results of that Tri-County study to the Board of Supervisors and to the participating other local governments throughout fall 2017 and into the winter, early parts of this year. And because the study results came back and said it probably wasn't a good idea for all of us to stick together, we essentially fractured. So in SLO County, the county decided not to pursue CCE further, but the city of San Luis Obispo and the city of Morro Bay are combining forces to start up their own CCE program serving their 2 cities. And then most of the jurisdictions, including Ventura County, they joined on to an LA County CCE program that's now up and running. Here in Santa Barbara County, the Board of Supervisors asked staff to take another look at some of the assumptions and methodology that went into that first study and make sure that it just see if it would be a viable undertaking for us at the county level. So we did commission a new feasibility study looking at CCE just for Santa Barbara County, and today I wanted to share those results with you. Just to quickly get you up to speed, we presented the results to the Board of Supervisors and to the City Councils of Carpinteria, Goleta, and Santa Barbara over the course of the past week. Those 4 jurisdictions have decided to move forward together with the intention of forming a joint powers authority to create a new CCE program serving Santa Barbara County. And that's why I'm here today offering you the option to join us as well. Next slide, please. So just really quickly, because I don't think these types of studies are that common, I wanted to just frame up what this technical feasibility study looked at. It essentially was trying to give us a sense for whether or not we could meet our economic development, clean energy, greenhouse gas reduction goals while fully covering our cost of offering this new type of electricity service and providing competitive rates to customers. So essentially, the consultant that we hired to do this study, they calculated all the costs that would go into running this type of CCE program. By far the biggest driver of those costs are to actually buy the electricity that then gets delivered to all of us. But there's also things like staffing, office space, all of those types of things. And then they set the electricity rates to make sure that this CCE program can fully recover the cost that it's going to incur. And then they try to compare what the electricity rates would be under the CCE program to what they would be if you just stayed with PG&E. And presumably, if the rates are the same or better under the CCE scenario than staying with PG&E, then our local governments may be interested in pursuing that because they could achieve some policy goals that they may not be able to meet with PG&E. And then the last piece it looks at, this would essentially be a startup operation. With any new startup organization, there's a time period where you're not yet breaking even. And so we wanted to look at, would we be able to break even and start bringing in revenues greater than cost in a reasonable time period. Next slide, please. This just outlines the scope of the study a little bit more. We did look at 3 different combinations of cities and county together. So we looked at the full county, that being the unincorporated parts of the county, as well as the 7 eligible cities. Lompoc was excluded because it already has its own municipally run utility. It doesn't need this option. We also looked at a scenario where it would just be the unincorporated parts of the county, and a third scenario that the city of Santa Barbara paid for. They wanted to know, could they go it alone and do their own program. We also looked at basically 3 levels of greenness for the electricity supply under the CCE program. The first option is the status quo, basically just complying with what's required by the state renewable portfolio standard. The second option is offering a higher renewable energy content than what PG&E currently offers, so starting at 50% renewable, and then even higher renewable energy scenario looking at 75% renewable. It was an 11-year study period starting in 2020 up to 2030, and then the consultants really did a robust financial pro forma assessment for us. So in short, the feasibility study essentially said that a CCE program serving all or part of Santa Barbara County can offer cleaner electricity with higher renewable energy content at a slight cost savings relative to both utilities, so relative to PG&E here in North County and Edison down in South County. Of the 3 geographic scenarios evaluated, the scenario where everybody's in it together was the most economically beneficial, meaning that it generated the greatest cost savings for customers. It accelerated the break-even point, meaning that we would actually become revenue net positive in the by the end of the first year of operations, and it generates the largest revenues that the CCE program could then reinvest back into our community in the form of either lower rates, new types of energy efficiency programs, electric vehicle rebates, things like that. And then the study found that the 50% renewable option best balances kind of environmental and cost considerations. Next slide. This is just a little bit of the financials in greater detail. Again, this is looking at the all-county scenario, the unincorporated county and all 7 eligible cities with the 50% renewable energy option, showing that we would need about a $9 million startup loan to get off the ground, but that we would pay that back in full by the end of the first operating year and generate a net surplus of just over $4 million in the first year, and that would increase up to almost $25 million by 2030. And then you can see again, the slight cost savings for customers. In the first year of operation, the typical residential customer would see about $11 cost savings overall the entire course of the year. That would grow to about $50 by 2030. As Mark alluded to, this is not a risk-free undertaking. This would essentially put our local governments in the energy business. It is a commodity-based industry. So, the consultants have great expertise at this. They actually work with the vast majority of the 17 CCE programs that are up and running across the state. They're trading power every single day. They really know energy markets well, but they're forecasting prices, and they could turn out to be higher than what we anticipated. There's also quite a few policy risks. There's a lot of changes underway, both at the California Public Utilities Commissions that regulates electricity providers, as well as at the legislature this session, that could essentially change some of the operating inputs to the CCE program that could alter the outcome of the study. And then the third thing I want to point out is that CCE is an opt-out program, meaning that if your city council tonight decides to join with the other 4 jurisdictions to create this CCE program, all of your residents and businesses would automatically be opted into the program and start getting their electricity from us rather than PG&E. They would have to take action to stay with PG&E. They can do it, they will be noticed, they will be given directions on how to do that, but they have to actually choose to do it and take that step. So it's possible that we could have more customers opt out than we planned for, which could change things as well. And we're seeing a big increase in people that are wanting to put solar on their roofs, and that essentially means that they're buying less electricity from either PG&E today or potentially a future CCE program, which could alter revenues as well. That said, these are not unknown risks. There are 17 CCE programs up and running across the state that have already addressed these. There are several options up here, very standard practice that would cut into mitigating any of these risks, and I'm happy to discuss in more detail, but I want to keep moving in the interest of time. Next steps, if you wanted to participate in the Santa Barbara County CCE program, we would essentially ask for you to authorize a resolution of intent. It is a non-binding resolution at this point. We're not committing to anything legally or financially. All the resolution would say is that you commit to work with staff from the County of Santa Barbara and the cities of Carpinteria, Goleta, and Santa Barbara, and any other cities that choose to join us, to negotiate the terms of a JPA and to negotiate a cost-sharing agreement with the intention of starting a CCE program. In terms of timing, we're aiming for early 2019 to have the JPA up and running, and the actual CCE program would start providing electricity to customers. We're anticipating early 2021. Okay. And that's all I have on CCE. Should I keep going, or do you want to take questions on that before going into the next one?
Why don't we take questions on that? I just had a few myself. Does anybody else have questions?
Yes, just you talked about the individuals opting out because of the new and I'm sure you're aware that PG&E has the new solar programs already. And so with that in mind and that being the option, what is the great advantage for City of Buellton to participate? Because we just recently did the solar, and our bill went from $200 to $60 a month.
Congratulations, that's great.
So
Thank you for the...
Zero.
Zero?
Yeah.
We'll talk to you later.
I during summer it could be great. Come wintertime might be a little different, but just overall, what is going to be the big advantage for the City of Buellton to join?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So speaking of kind of the existing solar energy and energy efficiency programs that are offered by PG&E, you would still have access to those programs. However, one of the key benefits of CCE programs is they actually get to design their own renewable energy and energy efficiency programs. And so far, all the ones that are doing so, those 17 programs that are operating across the state, their financial incentives are much more lucrative to the customer than what PG&E currently offers. So I'm guessing that you perhaps have rooftop solar under a net energy metering program. So PG&E right now, through their net energy metering program, they essentially pay you for any solar electricity that you don't consume in your home and push back to the grid. But they pay you at a much lower rate than what you're paying them for any electricity that you don't get from your solar panels. So if you were a CCE in PG&E territory, right now they're offering, what they're paying you for the solar energy you produce is more comparable to what you're paying them for any excess electricity you need. So it's a better deal for the customer. And then I would also add that it has been a little bit challenging to try to build new renewable energy projects here in Santa Barbara County for a variety of reasons, but one of them is that the procurement process at the utilities is kind of convoluted. It's hard to understand, it's hard to participate in. Controlling the CCE program would give you better ability to stimulate the development of new renewable energy resources and the associated jobs that comes with it. So that's another big reason as well. You know, some cities, for example, like the city of Lancaster and the city of Apple Valley down in Edison territory, they have pursued CCE programs not for environmental reasons, but actually as kind of a business recruitment tool. So they're setting the electric rates for their customers. So they can set lower rates for certain types of commercial customers that they're trying to attract to their city. So some are using it for an economic recruitment tool as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
I do. Where's the renewable energy source coming from? Is it solar? Is it wind power? Is it...
It's a mix. So on the slide that mentioned there were some risk associated with playing in the energy market. One of the risk mitigation tools is to design a really robust, diversified power portfolio. So that means that you wouldn't want to get all of your electricity from the same power plant or even the same type of energy source. So we wouldn't want to be all solar necessarily. We would want to be a mix of solar and hydro and geothermal and wind and natural gas. There's going to be some of that in there too. And you also want to diversify location-wise. So you want it coming from all different parts of the state and maybe even some out of state, so that if you're seeing supply shortages and therefore price spikes in one area, you're buffering that because not all of your electricity is coming from the same area. So the consultants that did our study, they did essentially build an example power portfolio from us showing where our electricity sources might come from. It's different whether you're located in PG&E or Edison territory just because their current supply mixes are different. So in PG&E territory, they designed a portfolio for us that would be cleaner and greener and cheaper than what PG&E offers right now. So it's a mix of renewable resources, including solar, wind, and geothermal, and I think maybe even some biomass. And then it also has a lot of large hydroelectric in it. That's not counted as renewable by the state, but it doesn't create any emissions. And so what that would allow a CCE program to do is to say, we are virtually emissions-free. We are not creating any carbon pollution. And so some of those large hydro facilities do come from the Pacific Northwest outside of California. So it's varied.
So in your study, where would they locate, say, wind, solar panels, et cetera? Where would that?
So again, the
Can't
consultant...
come out of thin air. I mean, if you're going to put up windmills, they got to be somewhere.
That's right. So again, they just set up an example portfolio for us to prove that it could be a financially viable undertaking. It will actually be up to the members of the JPA board to decide the specific projects they want to buy their electricity from. So they'll be the ones to decide, we actually want it sited right here in Santa Barbara County, and we think it's best coming from the new Lompoc Wind project that's under review, or Cuyama Valley, or right here in Buellton. So that'll be a policy decision for the JPA board to make. That JPA board will be comprised of elected officials from all of the cities and the county that choose to participate. And that's part of what would need to be negotiated, is kind of the voting rights structure, representation, all of those factors.
The other question I have is, how is this $9.3 million going to be recouped in a year?
Generating revenues. So you're now going to be in the business of selling electricity. So instead of PG&E getting the revenues from your electricity, now we will be getting it. And we will get to decide how to spend that money.
But you're going to buy that essentially from PG&E and then redistribute it. Is that the way I'm reading this?
Not necessarily. PG&E doesn't own all the supply.
Okay.
There are all different types of companies that build and own and operate power plants. PG&E, only about a quarter of their electricity comes from owned generation, maybe a third. Edison is even lower.
Okay.
So most of them are buying it as well.
So let me get this straight. All our electric lines and such, all our infrastructure here is basically owned by PG&E.
Correct.
Okay. So when you start these things up, I'm a little. You may can edify me on this. PG&E is not just going to give up their lines and their power.
They do not give up their lines. They do give up the power. So that's what the slide at the beginning that showed kind of three different buckets. There was the supply piece of what PG&E does, there was the delivery piece of what PG&E does, and there was the customer service piece. The delivery, the power lines, stays with PG&E. The customer service stays with PG&E. The only thing that changes is we decide where the electricity comes from rather than PG&E. PG&E just delivers the electricity we buy over their power lines.
Right. So you have to buy that electricity from someplace because you don't own a power plant.
That's correct.
Santa Barbara doesn't own a power plant.
That's correct.
So we're buying electricity from somebody. So if whoever you're buying it from decides, hey, we want to raise our rates on how much we're going to charge you for that, you have to in turn pass that on to the consumer, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You would negotiate power contracts, and that's part of the portfolio diversification as well. You can sign power purchase agreements from anywhere from like a year up to 25 years if you want to. And so, the longer the term is, you're locked into that rate. So typically these CCE programs sign shorter term contracts up front until they get a feel for how much all this electricity is going to cost and get their feet under them.
So on the renewal, let's say I'm a power company, and I say, you got a 2-year contract. After year 2, I can stick it to you. So if you want electricity from us still, this is X amount of dollars, and you're looking to make the questions on it. You see what I mean?
Yes.
If you renew a contract, you can say, okay, I'm PG&E, so I gave it to you for X kilowatts per hour, however they charge you. Now this next contract, I'm going to charge you much more.
There are hundreds of power sellers that we can buy from. You're not locked into buying from PG&E or any other single provider. That's part of the negotiating process. Another risk mitigation strategy is that we would hire people with the expertise that have been buying and selling power for many, many years and know the ins and outs and how to negotiate these deals.
Right. Okay.
Okay, I just had a couple myself. Then we'll go on to the strategic energy planning, take questions, and then I'll open it to the public, I promise. My question is, Santa Barbara, Goleta, Carpinteria, they're all under Southern California Edison, correct?
That is correct.
And North County is basically PG&E.
That's correct.
I was looking at I just had a couple questions. On the packet that we received, you have one that's the 2016 PG&E, SCE, and California Power Mix. And it looks like right now PG&E, or 2 years ago anyway, PG&E had more renewable than SCE did.
They have a little bit more, yes.
On the bottom it says, you break it down into renewable, coal, hydroelectric, natural gas, nuclear, and then you have unspecified sources. And PG&E has 14% of their power mix from unspecified. Southern California Edison has 41%. What is that?
That's buying wholesale power straight off the grid without knowing the source of that power. So again, part of the portfolio diversification is that you want to try to secure as much of the electricity needs you think your customers are going to have by negotiated power contracts one-on-one with individual power providers. But you're not going to always estimate your customers' electricity needs exactly, so you're going to leave a little bit open to allow you to either buy or sell on the wholesale electricity market. And when you buy on the wholesale electricity market, you're just getting a mix of electrons that flow through the power lines. You don't know what power plant they're coming from. And so they're required to state it as unspecified. So Edison buys a whole lot more wholesale than PG&E does.
Okay, thank you. And my only other question is, if Buellton decided to come in, my guess is you would base what we need to pay to get into this based on the number, the units that would be served by the power. But since we're so small compared to Goleta, Santa Barbara, even Carpinteria, our voice on this JPA would be much smaller, wouldn't it?
Those are all terms to be negotiated. So typically, what the existing CCE JPAs do is that they have kind of a tiered voting structure, and we don't have to follow this, but this is the most common thing I've seen, is that they have the first tier, which is just standard, business operating decisions to be made. It's a 1-for-1 majority vote. So everybody gets exactly one vote. Then there's a second tier that people can call for a weighted vote on maybe meatier items. And that weighted vote is often based on the proportional amount of electricity that customers in your jurisdiction consume. So to your point, Buellton uses a lot less electricity than the city of Santa Barbara does. So if a weighted vote were called, you would have less of a say in that instance. But by far, I think Marin, their CCE program that actually now serves many counties, it's the longest running. It's been up and running for 8 years now, and I think they've called for that weighted vote exactly once in their 8-year history. So it's not common to do that. It's usually just a straight majority vote. But that would be negotiated amongst the interested cities and county. And then in terms of the cost share, that would also be shared proportionally as well. I would guess, but this isn't guaranteed, that it would be based on your proportional electricity consumption, so your share of the cost would be a lot lower than the county's, for example.
All righty. Thank you very much.
In your Marin County study or your experience with them, has any cities opted out from their initial buy-in or?
The cities have not opted out, but individual customers have opted out. When Marin first formed its CCE program, not all of their cities joined off the bat. There were 2 or 3 outliers that held out, and they've joined over time. And then they've since grown into neighboring counties as well and really expanded their footprint a lot.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that question? Why did they opt out?
I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't involved in.
Do you know?
I can mention that in Ventura, I think Santa Paula, and one other city, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on which, maybe Fillmore, they chose not to join the LA CCE program with the rest of their Ventura counterparts. So if you had context there, maybe you could reach out to them why they decided not to.
My question is the buy-in. Someone buys in and then they decide to get out. Do you have restrictions on how soon they can get their money back, if at all?
Do you mean a jurisdiction or an individual customer?
The organization's, the jurisdiction's financial obligation.
Right.
Because we more than likely have an obligation than writing a check for it.
So again, that would be subject to negotiation, but what I'm used to seeing in some of the standard JPA agreements that other local governments have used for CCE programs is that there's a certain time period leading up to before you launch your program that jurisdictions can pull themselves out, without being on the hook for more than their initial buy-in, so to speak. But then once the JPA, the organization, has bought electricity to serve your customers, you're typically on the hook for those costs to serve your residents and your businesses. If you can pay that off, then you can leave.
And Madam Mayor, may I ask one question?
Of course.
Any interest from Santa Maria or Solvang, since they're the other two North County cities, and Guadalupe?
Guadalupe. We are in various stages of outreach with all three of them. We've had introductory meetings with both Solvang and Santa Maria, and we're still working on setting up a meeting with Guadalupe. We haven't done presentation like this to any of their city council, so I can't say which way they're leaning at this point.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming here.
Of course.
Alrighty, strategic energy planning.
Okay, next up. So this is a similar project designed to stimulate new local clean energy development across the county. It kind of grew out of the county's exploration of community choice energy. And again, it's trying to achieve what we think might be some of our shared economic development, environmental, and kind of grid reliability goals. So what it would do is that the county is procuring a contract with a consultant. Their name is Optiny, and the cities of Carpinteria and Goleta have agreed to share the cost of that contract with us, and we're reaching out to all other cities to see if they want to participate. And what the consultant will do is they will essentially help us better understand what parts of the county, including the cities that participate, are best suited to different forms of both large-scale renewable energy development and smaller rooftop, solar carport, on-site battery storage opportunities. So it's kind of a 2 to 3 step process. The first step is that the consultant will take a high-level look across the county, and it will identify the places across the county that are best suited for development from both a technical perspective, where there's sufficient wind speed and intensity, where there's a sufficient geothermal basin, where there's enough space to site battery storage with solar together. And it'll say, okay, these are all the spots that are really good from a technical perspective. And then we'll go in and take another cut and say, okay, they're good from a technical perspective, but now we want to look at it from an economic potential perspective. Where are the most cost-effective sites? And so combining that technical and that economic potential assessment, they will identify the top 50 properties, public or private, across the county and participating cities, and those top 50 sites, they will do a more in-depth analysis, and they will actually take some project ideas out to the community and hold some community workshops to get some feedback on, would you like these wind turbines sited next to your property? Are you interested in building a microgrid to serve your community in case the power lines go down during the next fire? And then they will incorporate the technical and economic assessment with the community feedback that they get, and they will develop a step-by-step roadmap that will show us how to actually develop those projects. So for projects that are best suited for privately owned properties, they'll help identify what are some policy changes that we could make that could help incent that development. So that could be some permitting enhancements, some zoning changes. It could be some programmatic options. It might be that just people don't have enough financial incentive. So is there some type of rebate program that we could offer, potentially in partnership with the CCE program? And then for publicly owned properties, they would actually help us identify some of the financing mechanisms, public-private partnerships, grants that we could access to build those projects on our own government facilities and lands. And then optionally, if you pay for it, jurisdictions can have the consultant actually prepare and submit grant applications on their behalf and secure partnerships with private developers and things of that nature. So I say we're in various stages of outreach with all of the cities. Same case as the Santa Maria and Solvang and Guadalupe question. We're in various stages of communicating with all of them. City of Carpinteria and Goleta have already voted to join us in this effort. The City of Santa Barbara is going to be using the exact same consultant to do a similar scope of work, but they want a more detailed analysis and are willing to pay more for it. Next slide, please. So if you wanted to participate in the strategic energy planning process with us, we would ask you to sign an MOU with the county. The county would be the contract holder with the consultant, and then we would have the MOU in place with any interested cities. It is a cost share arrangement. The cost share is based on proportionality of your jurisdictional land area and your population. So for Buellton, we're estimating somewhere in the ballpark of $6,500 to $12,000. It really just depends on how many cities sign up to do this. It depends on how far the cost gets spread out. And I also mentioned that while the contract will be between the county and the consultant, there are terms in the MOU that give you access to the consultant for your own conversations and analysis. And you will get your own clean energy roadmap that you can take and execute for your city. And that's all I had on that one. So in summary, the county is very interested in collaborating with you on both community choice energy and strategic energy planning, all with the mindset of trying to stimulate local clean energy development across the county and provide more local control over our electricity supply. These two initiatives can help meet our shared economic, environmental, and grid reliability and resiliency goals. And we really think that interagency collaboration provides some economies of scale to more cost-effectively meet our goals. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Final questions?
No, not right now.
Ed? No?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to open this up to the public. First of all, I have 3 speaker slips. If anybody wants to speak and hasn't turned in a slip, now's your chance. You've got your 3 minutes to let us know how you feel. Our first speaker is Mariah Clegg.
Hi, thank you for your time.
Welcome.
My name is Mariah Clegg, and I'm a researcher at UCSB in the sociology department. I started studying CCAs just a little over a year ago, and over that year I've had the great pleasure of talking to folks representing a range of different perspectives. I've got to say this is really coalition work. In particular, I've been in touch a lot with John Hughes, just down the road at IBEW for 413. John couldn't be here today, so I wanted to read a letter he wrote to the County Board of Supervisors in support of community choice energy. I write this letter in support of the most recent community choice energy feasibility study results. The IBEW encourages the board to, that's the County Board, to move forward with the formation of a Joint Powers Authority, JPA, to create and administer a new CC program with interested cities. The IBEW has been working diligently with elected officials and environmental organizations who have had the vision and the will to move forward with clean energy public policy throughout California. In 2015, Senate Bill 350 was signed into law, establishing statewide standards for the development of new clean energy resources, cleaner air, and GHG reductions. As a result, thousands of megawatts of utility-scale renewable power generation have been built by IBEW members throughout the state, including the recently completed 40-megawatt solar array project in Cuyama. We recognize the formation of a new JPA as the first step in a process to establish local control of energy choices. We caution the board and the subsequent JPA against the procurement of out-of-state power and the use of unbundled RECs within the local energy portfolio to the greatest extent possible. We continue to encourage the adoption of policies to develop and purchase power from locally generated sources to ensure that mutual benefits of California environmental and labor standards have been adequately addressed. As John recognizes, the CCA is crucial in achieving local control and energy, and there's a huge opportunity here to involve our unions in making our grid safer and more sustainable at our pace and with our control. Rather than hoping PG&E cuts us a good deal, we get to make that call. We don't have to wait for out-of-county bureaucracies and corporations to take care of us. We get to take care of our own house. As John recently put it to me, it's time, let's do this thing. There's important work to make this CCA plan deliver the results the unions deserve. This is the exciting work. What kinds of local jobs will our CCA create? What kinds of renewable technologies can we use to get there? Let's get started. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Larry Bishop.
Thank you, Mayor, and City Council members. Larry Bishop, 511 Sycamore Drive in Buellton. and I'd like to congratulate Jennifer and Craig and her staff and a group for bringing this up and all the work they've done so far. In my humble opinion, this is not a minor issue. This is a life and death situation that we as a civilization face. Buellton must be a model in responsible, sustainable energy production and use. Our green team, the Buellton Green Team, 2 or 3 years ago, brought this up. Well, we discussed it. I don't think it ever got up to the city council level, but it was discussed and dropped. At the time, I think these other programs were getting going. So I urge you to at least participate in the study, and the $6,000 to $12,000 that we spend to work on this is a small amount given the stakes involved and the amount of profit to the city that come about. Diablo is closing in a few years. Diablo is closing. No more nuclear energy. Do we want to buy energy from coal plants or gas plants? I have a solar system in my house. I haven't paid a bill since they turned it on. I haven't paid a penny to PG&E since they turned it on in 2016. In my rental, I put a solar system in my rental last year. They haven't paid a penny, or earlier this year. Took PG&E a while to hook up. They haven't paid a penny in electrical bills. What if 1,000 houses or 1,000 buildings, or at least even the city of Buellton and a few businesses, put a lot of solar panels on their roofs? City of Buellton and the citizens of Buellton will be energy purveyors. They will be producing energy more than they're consuming energy. Several cities are doing this. I think we can get all the information we need from Soul City and Morro Bay. The pirates of Morro Bay will help us to buy solar energy. So, but anyway, CCA, so I encourage the city to be a model, to move forward, carpe diem, grab this opportunity to be a model in the center of the county, to move the county forward with sustainable, safe energy now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Our last speaker, if anybody else wants to fill out their slip real quick, is Jefferson Litton. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Sierra and fellow council members. My name is Jefferson Litton, Chief of Staff for County Supervisor Joan Hartman. Last week, Supervisor Hartman voted with the board to move forward and adopt a resolution to form a Joint Powers Authority for Community Choice Energy, and I wanted to share some of the reasons why she chose to do so. So we've been tracking the existing community choice programs in the state, and what was initially compelling to our office was the ratepayer savings and the greenhouse gas emissions that it's achieved. And in looking at the existing programs and what they've been able to do, now there's 17 of them. Sonoma Clean Power, as an example, and I know there's some concerns about startup costs. Sonoma Clean Power was able to pay off all of their startup loans within just 2 years. In that 2 years, they saved their ratepayers $15 million. And they were also able to build up a $16.5 million reserve, which they could start investing into local programs. Marin Clean Energy, the oldest community choice energy program in the state, says that they've generated 2,800 jobs with their projects that they've built in the state of California. But beyond the ratepayer savings, beyond the emissions, what was really compelling to Supervisor Hartman was local control and local programs. Community Choice Energy creates an entity that is more responsive to our constituents, more responsive to our energy needs and energy challenges that we have here in Santa Barbara County. And in terms of local benefit, Contrary to the investor-owned utilities, which are required to pay a guaranteed return to their investors, the money that is generated with a community choice energy program stays in that local community and can be reinvested into that local community for programs like feed-in tariffs or better rates on net metering. So for those of you that have solar on your roof, you can get a better payback. Sonoma Clean Power in 2016 paid $550,000 back to their solar customers for their excess electricity that they generated. So with these reserves, with these monies, you can create a better market for local renewables. I think that's the reason why you see IBEW supporting this. Another local company here in town wasn't able to make it here, but they're strongly supportive of community choice energy because they recognize it as a vehicle to create a market for local generation. And, you know, community choice energy programs, they're structured to be leaner, nimbler, and certainly less top-heavy than the investor-owned utilities, allowing to deliver ratepayer savings and allowing to deliver more local community benefit. And I understand that this is a really complicated issue, and this is the first time that you've seen it before you, and you've seen a lot of information that's been given at you. And I applaud you all for asking excellent questions, and I encourage you to look at the existing programs and the success that they've had, and to continue to consider community choice energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You had a question for Jefferson?
I do.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah.
Where is that energy coming from in Marin?
So in Marin Clean Energy, they have projects. I mean, they've bought projects from the Central Valley. There is some out-of-state electricity that's come in. And then they also have a local renewables program, which is called a feed-in tariff, where you guarantee the rate that the program is going to pay for electricity that's locally built. And that, as an energy developer, there's really nothing better than that, because you can do your calculations, do your pro formas, and see if a project pencils out for you.
Now, you're saying this is clean, renewable energy. Where's that energy source coming from? Are they windmills? Are they solar panels? Are they...
So, depending on if you're calling it renewable energy, it's going to be geothermal, solar, wind, small hydro. So that's what those sources are. And then there's also carbon-free, and that's as we've been doing our research. More community choice programs are looking to carbon-free, which would be that you'd throw large hydro into there. And nuclear also qualifies, but there really isn't any nuclear. But once Diablo goes down, there really won't be any nuclear left in the state.
So a lot of this is coming from windmills?
Windmills and solar, I would say, yeah.
Right now, we're not getting anything from coal. PG&E is not.
I don't believe so. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Alrighty, I have no other speaker slips, so I'm closing the public hearing, bringing it back to council. Why not?
Go ahead.
I think it's an interesting proposition. Like I said, just from the first month that personally doing the solar, we're having good luck. My biggest concern is that Buellton not having the management to make sure this program works right. So I just think we need a little bit more information, but I would be pro doing the community choice energy and the strategic planning. I think long term, with the right information, I think it would be good for us.
Okay. I like my solar too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Andresic?
We have an urban growth bound. I appreciate that we've not budgeted, so as far as I'm not interested in beginning a participation tonight, given what we have. But the mechanics of Buellton and the geography is that we can't go and make ourselves more affordable by bringing in more meters. We have an urban growth boundary. I think if you were serious about trying to get, the money is in the savings are in the number of units that you supply in a community. And the communities are Solvang, they're going to run through the same situation, but they could easily annex enough people to make the project more feasible for them if they wanted to. We don't have that that capacity without going through a lot of administrative, probably a year or two of if everybody came on board and said, what do we have to do to make this affordable for the average homeowner? I'm happy you're saving money, but at some point the power sources are going to have more and more regulation and be required. I can see the day coming for restrictions to where your grid components come from, because people will begin to say you've infected our system or you've polluted our system, and we're a very tiny, because we are a JPIA. We're members of JPIA, and I think it's a real leap of faith for us to do it. We're looking at a digester. The county, we're going to take care of our garbage. I think it's been 12 years, and we haven't proceeded at all on it. And we were all in on that, but we didn't start paying money. This the money dedication, or the money grab, if you will, bothers me, and I would like to have more input than we have here.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Me?
Your comments, I'm the mayor, I get to go last.
Okay. No, oh, absolutely.
One of the perks.
To your point, Holly, I think that there is some potential for us to be bulldozed by some bureaucratic organization group that makes decisions. Since we're a 5,000 person city, we could get swallowed up by decisions being made for us instead of us being made the decisions on our own. The other one is I just drove across 6 states, and I will tell you that I am ashamed that any governing body in this country has put those three-winged, bird-killing, inefficient monstrosities across this country for miles and miles and miles. And I think that it would cut me to the core if I supported anything, $1 of taxpayers' money, that put one of those in this beautiful, majestic Santa Barbara County. I have absolutely no support for this at all.
Okay. Right. Well, I've broken it down into two. The community choice energy. I am concerned about the size of our community and our participation. I'd be really curious to hear how other smaller communities up here in northern Santa Barbara County feel about it, because I want to be able to do right to our residents. That is a concern. I really like the strategic energy planning idea, and what I'd like, first of all, I want an opportunity to study other JPAs and just see the size of those communities and how they feel about it. I'd like that opportunity to do that, and I'd really like to bring this, I'd like to reconvene our green team and really have a discussion and just, find out what ideas they have. So I don't say that I totally oppose this 100%. I kind of tend to agree that we should not make a decision tonight, but that the strategic energy planning really intrigues me, and I'd like to get some more information before we make a decision about either one of them.
And I'll let the green team know.
Would you?
Put something together.
Thank you.
Are they outside?
I think there's a couple in the room, but all righty. Well, thank you very much for coming. Truly appreciate it, and we've got some homework to do.
Happy to help out. Feel free to direct questions to us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to our agenda item number 5, ordinance number 18-02, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, repealing Municipal Code Chapter 9-08 and adding Municipal Code Chapter 19-20 regarding commercial cannabis activities and cannabis cultivation. This is our second reading.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, at your July 12th meeting, you introduced and held the first reading of this ordinance, and the ordinance is now ready for its second reading and adoption. And I can answer any questions.
Any questions, council?
I have no questions at this time.
I have no speaker slips for this agenda item, so open and close public hearing unless anybody wants to get up and speak real quick.
Question.
Closing public hearing. Bring it back for questions and comments.
The,
Thank you very much for coming.
my concern, and I was trying to figure out how, because this is still supposed to be a controlled substance, and so the one space that I worry about is the outdoor space. We feel like we've designed an ordinance that people can't just walk in and take them, but let's just say that somebody comes with the idea that I can have 6 plants, and then maybe in a couple of months they don't have any plants, so they get 6 more plants. And are we at all under? Now, I've talked to some folks that grow these things, and they said they're 8 to 10 months. So the quickest an outdoor plant could be cultivated for profitability would be probably one trek a year.
Well, they can't do it for profitability in the city limits outdoors.
I understand. We've said that, but what if they're just they say, I don't know where they went?
Well, that's governed by state law. That's not governed by this particular ordinance. So if they're growing indoors, somebody turns them in, the sheriff can go take a look at it. But
if they grow outdoors,
they can't grow outdoors. That's prohibited in our.
I thought that's what the 6 plants were.
No,
it's indoors only.
Only. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sorry. The indoors are a lot
State law
longer
supersedes
gestation.
anything we're doing.
That's what I've been told.
But ours specifically says not outdoors. So.
My mistake. Thank you.
Easy, huh? Any other questions, comments, motions?
Yeah, I move that we approve ordinance number 18-02, an ordinance of City Council of the City of Buellton, California, repealing Municipal Code Chapter 9.08 and adding Municipal Code Chapter 19.20 regarding commercial cannabis activities and cannabis cultivation as written.
I'll second. No, they're both second.
Linda?
Okay, Vice Mayor King.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Okay, thank you for driving all the way up here to answer any questions we had.
Happy to be here
For
my annual trip.
We enjoy having you here. Okay, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did have a. There you are.
Hello.
We did have a meeting with people helping people and Live United, Home for Good, and Lieutenant Shui about the potential movement of homeless from Lompoc when they do their riverbed enforcement. So we're going to be doing a census in the riverbed. Home for Good, along with the Sheriff's Department and People Helping People, will do an initial assessment and census. So when that does occur in Lompoc and there's additional, if we get an increase in population, we can possibly ask for help on that. And if you want to add a little bit.
We're expecting, what, about 70 to 80 displaced homeless leaving the riverbed in Lompoc, and we don't know where they're going. So we want to be proactive in this. I appreciate the city managers moving forward on this.
Right. I mean, that number is, I think the survey last time you did it, was it like 2? We had 2 or 3.
Right, there's not a lot, and Lieutenant Shui, in the case, there's not that many, but there could be, if we have a baseline, and the person who will be doing the census has worked in Lompoc, so she knows a lot of the faces and people that are there, so if they do show up here, we'll have a little better idea that, yes, they've come to.
She's with AmeriCorps, right?
That is correct.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've got Kachuma releasing water end of August, September, and we have
Flushing them out.
approximately 100 homeless being evacuated from the riverbeds in Lompoc. They're setting up a triage center. They're expecting 20 to 30 people to come to the triage, so we need to get a plan going for Buellton. And I appreciate Lieutenant Shui and Mr. Birdzinski and Jeff Schaefer and Dean Peleus, and we'll be talking to Pam Nico and getting something going. I appreciate it.
And we had an unveiling of the new logo and branding for the Visitors Bureau in Buellton today. So they have a new website. I encourage you to go on there. They have a whole, I'm not sure if they have the history of how they developed the logo, but it was a big production of how they did that. So I encourage you to go on their new website, take a look at it, and
Discover Buellton.
Discover Buellton.
Discover Buellton. It was a nice presentation.
Yes, and the tagline of stay away from big cities or something to that effect. The hashtags don't go to big cities.
All righty. All done? Thank you very much. With that, we're closing.